I'm Michael Cooper with this introduction to the Digital Accessibility Framework project. In this video, I'll walk you through content in the database and explain how we derive the content and how to use the database. Everything I'll be demonstrating is available online in the list of links that accompany this video. I'm going to move my video off to the right side of the screen and resize the screenshot area to fit on the left. Space at the bottom helps for captions if you have them enabled. To start, I'd like to contextualize the work we've done by reviewing some of the work that this project continues in which you've been involved. I felt for a long time that we needed to create a more top-down approach to identifying potential guidance to complement other approaches. In 2017, with the W3C APA group, I published an initial concept in the draft document, Framework for Accessible Specification of Technologies, or FAST. I wanted to start by compiling a universal set of accessibility user needs from across the various published sources we know about. The result was a multi-level list that fit every user need into a category or subcategories. In 2020, people working on WCAG 3 took interest in this and formed the Functional Needs subgroup. This group changed the focus to functional needs, which align the user's need with the intersection of person and environment. They also introduced intersectional needs, which are new needs that can emerge when a user has a combination of functional needs. In 2021, the group began exploring how the functional needs can form a matrix with user needs to highlight accessibility needs. The group did a deep dive into one functional need, vision and visual, to explore the usefulness of the matrix. And in 2022, the functional needs and user needs were moved to the FAST, replacing the previous collection of user needs. In 2023, Accessible Community created the Use-able project, which brought together both digital and physical functional needs from various standard sets. This is the material we started with for this project. We began the Digital Accessibility Framework project in 2023 to continue the refinement of functional and user needs. This started with a set of principles that we hoped would help us think in new ways about the issues. We thought this would help us refine a matrix that would be helpful to predict accessibility needs. So now I'll go into the concepts and resources we've developed. To start, I'll define the terms as we're now using them. A functional need is a statement that describes a specific gap in one's ability or a specific mismatch between ability and the designed environment or context. An intersectional functional need results from an individual having more than one functional need simultaneously in a given context. A user need is a high-level accessibility characteristic of content or a user interface that is necessary for users to complete an objective. The user need contexts are specific types of user interaction or situation relevant to the user need. The different types of resources are organized on the overview page, which is primarily a list of everything available in the database. I'll start with the functional need categories. In alphabetical order, these are all cognitive, mobility, and sensory. The categories follow the WCAG 2 structure of POUR, or perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, though we don't include robust at the current level of detail. We added a couple special functional needs in the all category, all and unsure. All means the accessibility need applies to all functional needs at once. The unsure need is for statements that were derived from guidelines, but we didn't find a match with the functional needs we've identified so far. To show an example of other functional needs, I'll go into the sensory category. There are a number of high-level functional needs that we think are important now, or may be important in the future. For this category, we go beyond senses like vision and hearing to include smell and taste, or olfactory and gustatory. I won't go through all the categories, but each one we tried to think of functional needs that might intersect with technology within the next 20 years. Returning to the overview page, there's a link to the entire set of functional needs outside the context of their categories as well. This is the full set of functional needs that you'll see as column headers in the matrix when we get to it. In this view, they're sorted alphabetically instead of by category. In the overview, you see that intersection needs are listed separately from functional needs. They are functional needs, but they're defined as combinations of other functional needs. There's a huge number of potential combinations, so we only include the ones we have identified so far. After the functional needs in the overview is a list of user needs. The user needs also incorporate the POUR model, slightly changed to become perceive, operate, and understand/learn. We added user control and manage risks/stay safe, as early on we found those also to be universal considerations for accessibility. Under the user needs list in the overview is a user need contexts list. These specify the kind of content or interaction for which an accessibility need might exist. They include types of input, types of content, and some situational contexts. Some user needs and user need contexts don't make sense together. For instance, one does not operate distractions. You'll see when we explore the matrix that we mark those as NA, and those cells have a darker background. Now I'll show you the matrix. The link to it is at the top of the overview page. There's also a link to it in the footer of all pages, along with links back to the overview and to documentation. The version of the matrix on screen now is small, but I'll show you readability features soon. The concept is that the lists of functional needs, user needs, and context combine to form a 3D matrix with intersections that define potential points of interest for accessibility. The 3D model is collapsed to a 2D table here by repeating the user needs context for each user need. So each user need has an entire group of rows that apply to it. With the functional needs, user needs, and contexts serving as row and column headers, the individual cells in the table represent our points of potential interest for accessibility. There are about 2,000 of these, but we expect only a few hundred of them to need accessibility guidance statements. This is one reason the model is so high level, to give us a somewhat tractable set. In the matrix, where we see an accessibility issue, we create a guidance statement in the form of, as a user with X need, I need Y accommodation. Each guidance statement has a short name, which is what you see in the matrix. The full statement is available as a tooltip on the short name to give as much context as possible within the matrix. The tooltip here reads, as a user with a cognitive disability, I need context-sensitive help. The short name in the matrix also links to a full page about that statement. In this example, I followed the link for context-sensitive help. The full guidance statement is shown after the heading, which is the same as what we saw in the tooltip. If we have any notes about the statement, they'll appear after the notes header. The supports header shows how the statements are mapped in the matrix. A given mapping is a triad of functional need, and user need context. A specific functional need may participate in multiple mappings, so in this example, the user need understand/learn and the context help and instructions are each mapped to 3 separate functional needs. In this case, the statement therefore shows up in 3 cells of the matrix. After the mappings, the references header shows guidelines or research that we have associated with the statement. In this example, the statement is mapped to one WCAG 2.2 requirement and one from the ISO User Accessibility Needs Guidance. Research will also show up here. The full collection of all references is linked from the overview as well. For now, these are sorted by URI. In the final column, you find the specific guidance statement that was referenced the link. To finish up with the guidance statement, after the references header, we have a free tag option for the statements. Any tags will show up under that heading at the bottom. Tags can also be found from the overview page. We included them to provide a way of capturing concepts not yet built into the database. For the guidance statement we were exploring, we got to it by following a link from the matrix. On the overview, the guidance statements are also available in a single list. The list has 2 groups. The first is guideline-derived statements, which are statements that map to known guidelines. The second is matrix-derived statements. These statements haven't been mapped to existing guidelines and represent potential new accessibility guidance. These categories help us to avoid repetition and overlap with existing standards while highlighting potential new guidance. Exploring all that took us away from the matrix, but it's important to know about that stuff underneath the matrix. Now we can go back to the matrix where you can see how the statements are placed according to their mappings. In this example, I've highlighted where the context-sensitive help statement shows up in 3 cells of the matrix. There are many ways to explore the matrix, but ultimately you're looking at the intersections of functional needs, user needs, and contexts. The column headings in the table are the functional needs. They're each linked to the pages we saw before, showing the list of guidance statement mapped to that functional need. Therefore, following the link in the column header takes you to a page that contains the information from that column in a list form. The same is true for the row headers. The user need headers span multiple rows in order for each of them to encompass the full set of user need contexts. Following the context header links goes to a page containing the information from that row. The user need headers go to a page for the entire row group. This is an extremely large table with both a lot of content and a lot of empty cells. You can scroll the table to explore it and the headings will stay fixed. Or you can use the Fit Matrix checkbox to resize the matrix to the width of your viewport, as we saw it before. The result gives a more useful visual overview, but the small text may be difficult to read. To help with that, the Show Enlarge Pop-ups checkbox will show the contents of a table cell in an enlarged pop-up when the mouse moves over it. Other options you can activate are Show Same Statements to highlight statements that appear in multiple parts of the matrix. And Show Cell Position activates a row and column shader that follows the mouse to help track the relationship of cells and headings. You can turn these features on and off as you prefer. I personally find it helpful to view the matrix both at natural size and in the shrunken form, depending on what I'm looking for. And at other times, I don't use the matrix, I navigate the content lists from the overview page. Essentially, everything links to everything else, so you find yourself viewing content in a few different ways as you progress. So that covers the features of the tool and the content we've developed so far. There's some brief documentation available to cover the concepts and approaches in written form. I hope this will give you an understanding of the approach we've developed and how it can fit with other efforts. We're only at the beginning of developing and refining the content. Right now, we're looking for review primarily on the approach and structure. That is, does the model of functional needs, and user need context with the 3-way intersections work? Are there any functional needs or whatever that we missed? More abstractly, is there anything the model needs in order to be able to capture the universality that we want? Are there other guidance documents that we should be considering for mapping to this matrix? We have more guidance about how to contribute to this project on the reviewer page we set up, which is a GitHub wiki. So take a look. Thank you for your time in reviewing this work, and I look forward to engaging with you on it.